Rhaenyra Targaryen has won the Iron Throne, but perhaps life as the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms is far less glamorous than one would hope. Reality has kicked in, and for what could be the first time in the Game of Thrones franchise, we have an episode that feels as if it jumped straight from the pages of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. In terms of being told from a character's point of view, faithfulness to the source material, not so much, but we'll get to that in a minute. This may be the third episode, but it feels like the beginning of a brand new season. And as we all know, the previous 2 episodes were supposed to conclude season 2. So this one feeling like a new season makes total sense. And the vast majority of the runtime is focused solely on Rhaenyra's first days as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. The episode title is Rhaenyra Triumphant. The Dragon Queen has had her hero moment and now sits the famous chair, but her troubles have only just begun. Her reign lacks legitimacy and security as the war is far from over. Aemond and Aegon are MIA and Lord Ormond Hightower's army remains a threat. But in this episode, the immediate danger is within the walls of the Red Keep itself. Not from enemy dragons nor knives in the dark, but rather the logistics of running a broken realm and feeding a starving city. It almost feels like we've been given a look behind the curtain, or have been given access to a secret chapter beyond the very end of a book, where the story doesn't end with the protagonist completing their mission, but rather we as readers witness what happens next, where we begin to ask questions such as how does Bran the Broken's reign not end in total disaster, or what is Aragorn's tax policy? If you're going into this expecting a third outing of dragons, blood and death, you'll surely be disappointed. But as I've always said, Thrones was at its best when it was a heavy focus on characters, with 2 people debating in a room being some of the best episodes. That's why I love Season 2 so much, and some of the best scenes are just Tyrion and Cersei in the small council room trying to get the best of each other. And this episode lays the groundwork for what's to come, especially concerning Rhaenyra's inevitable downfall, even if we've long ventured off the path laid down in Fire and Blood. But before we get to the real focal point of the episode, we have the cold opening, where Daemon Targaryen and Ormond Hightower meet on the field. The Hightower force is considerable, but Daemon, the ever-king of Orafarman, has 3 adult dragons at his back. Caraxes, Vermithor and Silverwing would make quick work of the men from the Reach, and even the young dragon, the Blue Queen Thessarion, ridden by Daeron Targaryen, wouldn't last 5 seconds. This conflict would be another field of fire, so Ormond has no choice but to bend the knee and declare Rhaenyra his queen. But when is it ever that simple? Daemon takes his youngest nephew Daeron as prisoner to make sure the Hightowers don't go back on their word, but it's all a ruse. As we soon discover, I guess Daemon should have asked for some ID, or paid attention when Thessarion tries to keep a straight face when the dragon literally looks at the camera and goes, "Yeah, who the hell is that?" You live and you learn, folks, but it could be a costly mistake. And I think it's fair to say the whole Fake Daeron plot isn't a groundbreaking twist on the same level as, let's say, Ned Stark getting his head taken off in the first season. But I suppose they needed something to fill out the runtime until we can get back on track. And I have a feeling someone on the writing team is a fan of young Griff, and maybe they typed Fake Targaryen into an AI developer and it spat out this storyline. But as always, Matt Smith is just the best, and Daemon is having the time of his life, flexing his big dragon energy. Now that's out of the way, we join Rhaenyra on her first day. She's clearly nervous, but has lofty goals of restoring peace to the realm. She remembers back to her childhood within these walls. And you guys know we love Emma Darcy. Emma has been excellent, in particular this season. And the concept of a point of view episode is extremely ambitious, as we live in a world where half the audience is dual screening it, only looking up from their phone when a dragon shows up. But luckily for the writers, they have someone with the skill set to carry the load. And I would not be surprised if this episode gets Emma an Emmy nomination. And I love the use of music and white noise to reinforce how overwhelmed Rhaenyra is feeling. And from the get-go, she is bombarded with complaints, concerns and requests, ranging from maintaining the city, feeding her people, and of course the small matter of having to kill her youngest half-brother. All the signs were there that this kid is a fake, but I suppose Rhaenyra has a lot on her mind, and Daemon is far too busy planning world domination to notice. Rhaenyra's number one concern is cementing her rule, and first things first, she wants her coronation sorted to remove any doubt of legitimacy and to put to bed any talk of Aegon being the rightful king. However, to have a coronation you need money, and the former Master of Coin, Tywin Lannister, who was last seen being thrown overboard in the gullet, moved the crown's gold out of the Red Keep before the Greens lost control. A masterstroke, as Rhaenyra cannot rule without coin. So don't expect a grand coronation, a tourney to celebrate the occasion, or even enough food to go around. King's Landing is starving, and the people in the streets of the city have it the worst. And in this episode, Rhaenyra really tries to be the champion of the small folk, rather than best friend to the nobility. But honestly, there's not even enough money to pay a bounty for the rider of Sheepstealer's head. Yes, Rhaenyra hasn't and will never let that one go, and at one point she even starts seeing the ghost of her dead son. And you just know when she finally discovers it was Rhaena who was riding Sheepstealer, she will be far too gone not to call for her head. But as for now, Rhaenyra needs a small council, as those on Dragonstone have been relieved of their duties. With only Corlys remaining in his hand, Lady Mysaria is now the new Mistress of Whispers. And I guess Daemon just does whatever he wants. Is he the Master of War? Is he just the Queen's uncle husband? Does that give him a free pass to do anything? She doesn't have a Queen's Guard, with only Sir Luther Largent serving as her protector, much to his frustration because he's got his own job as head of the Gold Cloaks. But I'm fairly confident he will be put on the night shift within Rhaenyra's chambers in no time. Someone else who I think will make their way onto the small council at some point is Alicent, who is obviously going to piss everyone else off. I don't think she'll be a long-term appointment, but I just feel Rhaenyra will look to her former BFF when things get worse. Not only has she pissed off the nobility by serving their rats and taking their valuables, she's made an enemy of the faith. And we know the Targaryens and the Faith of the Seven have a long, muddy history. The High Septim refuses to crown her until she kills Aegon and proves it, and book readers will love how the High Septim calls the dragons abominations born from dark magic. Cue all the theories on the High Towers, the Faith, and the Maesters of Old Town working together to rid the world of the Targaryens and their dragons. It's almost as if the writers were trying to recreate some of the early Game of Thrones episodes with the small council, but unfortunately I just don't find them anywhere near as interesting as Varys, Littlefinger, Pycelle, nor Tyrion or Cersei. Daemon and Mysaria bickering was fun for the first time, but they're starting to feel like children arguing for the sake of it. And no doubt Mysaria will end up in Rhaenyra's bed at some point, with Daemon heading to the Vale. Rhaenyra's list of allies grows thin, and she's clearly lost Corlys, who wants Rhaenyra to legitimize his bastard sons, but Rhaenyra is having none of it, all because of the strong boy allegations. Corlys has been heavily underused, so it's great to see him finally get a chance to shine, but I'm sure him calling Rhaenyra's sons bastards is going to upset a fair amount of folk, but I can see his frustrations. He's lost so much, yet remained faithful, and this is how he's repaid. Then there's Baela, who can't even get a hello. Yeah guys, the Velaryons are definitely ditching Rhaenyra in the near future, and the Dragon Seeds change the course of this war, yet they've been told they're only worth so much. That is no doubt going to come into play later. And we also get the first appearance of Torrin Manderley, played by the ever-brilliant Dan Fogler, who you all know played Jacob Kowalski in Fantastic Beasts. But honestly, House of the Dragon has a stellar cast, but not everyone has been used properly. And honestly, if you're just here for sexy Targaryens riding dragons, this might not be the episode for you. You might not be in a rush to watch this on repeat, but I think it's a very well done episode, and they tried something new. It was very ambitious, and they definitely picked the right character for the point of view. It didn't succeed in every aspect of its execution. Seriously, sometimes it feels like the characters are purposely acting stupid, or the writers need to create problems to get around other problems they already made for themselves. But yes, the High Towers have taken Tumbleton and are using the people as hostages, including Hugh Hammer's own wife. And I can already hear folks screaming, just burn the place down, and whilst you're at it, kill the High Septim. I guess the later seasons of Thrones have a lot to answer for, where there were no consequences whatsoever. But guys, let me know your thoughts on this episode, compared to the previous two, which were more action focused. And would you like to see more point of view episodes in the future? But does House of the Dragon have any characters other than Rhaenyra that it could work for? Maybe Daemon, but unlike A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, this show doesn't exactly have characters who you can say are good people that you can relate to and get behind. There's no Dunk, nor even a Jon Snow. So perhaps they might just leave this concept alone as a one and done, but maybe they can do it again for another show? Maybe for the next Game of Thrones spin-off, whatever that may be. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.